Work Rules. Insights from inside Google that will transform how you live and lead, by Laszlo Bock. Introduction. Imagine for a moment that you were born in a world shrouded in secrets. A world where your parents have never tasted a banana. Where children are encouraged to spy on their own family. Where the government tells you nothing but lies, and your friends can disappear for asking the wrong questions. This isn't a dystopian novel. This was the reality for a young boy named Laszlo Bock, born in communist Romania in 1972. His family lived under a dictatorship where fear was the currency and information was the enemy. They eventually fled, seeking the one thing they were denied: freedom. The freedom to think what they wanted, to go where they wanted, and to know the truth. Now, imagine that same boy, decades later, stands at the heart of a company with a wildly ambitious mission: to organize all the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. A company that was, in its very DNA, the opposite of the world he escaped. That company is Google, and Laszlo Bock became its head of people operations, the person in charge of how Google finds, grows, and keeps its most valuable asset, its people. What he discovered and helped build there became the subject of one of the most influential business books of our time, Work Rules. This isn't just another corporate memoir. It's a blueprint, a deeply human story about how one company decided to bet everything on a simple, radical idea, that if you give people freedom, they will amaze you. Over the next few minutes, we're going to pull back the curtain on the inner workings of a place that receives over 2 million applications a year, a place 25 times more selective than Harvard. We'll explore the counterintuitive principles Google used to build what's been called the world's first self-replicating talent machine. And here's my promise to you. By the end of our time together, you'll understand that creating an extraordinary workplace has almost nothing to do with fancy perks like free food and nap pods. It has everything to do with a set of rules, a philosophy about people that you can start applying tomorrow, whether you're leading a company, a small team, or just yourself. These are the rules that transform how we live and how we lead. Book summary. Every great story has an origin myth. Rome had Romulus and Remus, nursed by a she-wolf. Superman had baby Kal-El, rocketing away from an exploding Krypton. And Google, well, Google had 2 students on a campus tour at Stanford University. But the real story, the one that truly matters, starts much earlier. It starts in the hearts and histories of its founders, Larry Page and Sergey Brin. Larry's grandfather was an auto worker in the early days of the American car industry. He carried a weapon to work, a heavy iron pipe, to protect himself from the company during sit-down strikes. That story, of workers having to fight the very people they worked for, left a deep impression on Larry. He vowed that if he ever built a company, it would be a place that felt like a family, not a battlefield. Sergey's family defected from the Soviet Union to escape the constant oppression and anti-Semitism of the communist regime. He grew up with a deep-seated rebelliousness, a need to question everything and push back against control. For him, freedom wasn't an abstract idea, it was the air he was finally able to breathe. Both Larry and Sergey were also Montessori kids. If you know anything about Montessori schools, you know they're environments built on freedom. Children are encouraged to follow their own curiosity, to question everything, to create and to act of their own free will. So you have these 2 young men, one shaped by stories of labor conflict, the other by the fight for political freedom, both educated in a system that valued autonomy above all else. Is it any surprise that when they started a company, it looked nothing like a traditional corporation? Their goal wasn't just to build a great search engine. It was to create a place where work was meaningful, where people were free to pursue their passions, and where families were cared for. As Larry once said, if you're changing the world, you're working on important things. You're excited to get up in the morning. This is the first, And maybe the most important rule of all, you have to choose to be a founder. Now, this doesn't mean you have to start a company. It's an attitude. A founder sees a problem and fixes it. A founder cares about the culture of their team, their family, their community. They take responsibility. An employee, on the other hand, does their job. A machine does its job. But an owner, a founder, does whatever is needed to make the entire enterprise successful. Laszlo Bock argues that this choice, to think like a founder, is the single most important decision you can make in your career. And if you choose to be a founder, your first task is to build a culture. There's a famous saying in the business world, often attributed to the great management thinker Peter Drucker, "Culture eats strategy for breakfast." What it means is simple. It doesn't matter how brilliant your strategy is. If your people don't believe in it, if the environment is toxic, if they don't trust each other or their leaders, you will fail. When people think of Google's culture, they picture the colorful slides, the beanbag chairs, the free gourmet food. But those are just the artifacts, the visible symbols. The real culture, the foundation of the entire company, is built on three invisible but incredibly powerful pillars: mission, transparency, and voice. First, a mission that matters. Google's mission is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. Notice what's not in there. There's no mention of profit, or market share, or shareholders. It's a moral goal, not a business one. It gives work a deeper meaning. Revolutions, after all, are fought for ideas, not for quarterly earnings reports. This kind of mission is something you can never fully achieve. There will always be more information to organize, which means it provides a constant source of motivation and innovation. It's what allowed Google to go from simply ranking web pages to creating things like Google Street View, a project whose goal was to create a historical record of the entire world at street level. A mission focused on profit would never have led there. The lesson here is profound. We all want our work to matter. The psychologist Amy Wajesnewski found that people see their work in one of three ways: as a job, a career, or a calling. A job is a necessity. A career is a ladder to climb. But a calling is a source of fulfillment, a way to contribute something socially useful. And the amazing thing is, you can find a calling in almost any work. It's all about how you frame it. Laszlo tells the story of a fish slicer in New York City, a man who used to guide climbers on Mount Everest. He said the two jobs weren't so different, because both involved helping people. That's the power of connecting your work to a mission. As a leader, your job is to help people see that connection. The easiest way? Let them meet the people they are helping. One study found that when university fundraisers met a scholarship recipient for just 5 minutes, their weekly fundraising went up by over 400%. Why? Because their work suddenly had a human face. The second pillar is transparency. At Google, the default is to be open. A new software engineer gets access to almost all of the company's code on their first day. Product roadmaps, launch plans, and team goals are visible to everyone. Every week, at a company-wide meeting called TGIF, Larry and Sergey stand on stage and take questions from any employee on any topic. The questions aren't softball pitches, they're tough, probing questions about everything from product strategy to ethics. This level of openness is terrifying to most companies, but it's built on a core belief: if you trust people, they will be trustworthy. Transparency kills office politics. It prevents teams from doing redundant work. And it gives everyone the context they need to make better decisions. It treats people like owners, not cogs in a machine. The third pillar is voice. This means giving employees a real say in how the company is run. Many of Google's most beloved people practices didn't come from a top-down mandate, they came from employees. For example, a Googler pointed out that the U.S. Tax code unfairly required same-sex couples to pay income tax on health benefits for their partners, while heterosexual married couples did not. The head of benefits agreed it wasn't fair and implemented a policy to provide extra payments to cover that tax, making Google one of the first major companies to do so. Another example is a program called Bureaucracy Busters. When Googlers felt the company was getting slow and bogged down, the CFO didn't launch a bunch of corporate initiatives. He asked the employees themselves to identify their biggest frustrations and help fix them. Giving people a voice isn't just about being nice. It leads to better decisions and a more effective organization. So you have these three pillars: a meaningful mission, a culture of transparency, and a commitment to giving people a voice. This is the foundation of a high-freedom environment. But to build on that foundation, you need the right people. And this brings us to what Laszlo Bock calls the single most important activity in any organization: hiring. Most of us think we're pretty good at hiring. We pride ourselves on being good judges of character. We meet someone, and within the first few minutes, we have a gut feeling about them. The problem is, our gut is usually wrong. A huge body of research shows that our first impressions are riddled with unconscious biases. We tend to like people who are like us. We spend the rest of the interview not assessing the candidate, but looking for evidence to confirm our initial snap judgment. Psychologists call this confirmation bias. It means that most interviews are a complete waste of time. Equally worthless are the brain teaser questions that some companies love to ask, like how many golf balls fit inside a 747. These questions don't predict job performance at all. They mostly just serve to make the interviewer feel smart. So if our gut is wrong and brain teasers are useless, how do you find the best people? Google's approach is a masterclass in turning hiring from an art into a science. It's built on a few core principles. First, hire slowly. Finding truly exceptional people takes time. A bad hire is toxic and can drag down an entire team. As one Google executive says, "I'd rather lose an entire incoming class of engineering graduates than one exceptional technologist." So they are willing to keep roles open until they find exactly the right person. Second, hire only people who are better than you. This is a simple but powerful rule. Every person you hire should be better than you in some meaningful way. They might be more creative, more analytical, or have deeper expertise. This ensures that the talent bar is constantly rising with each new generation of hires. It's how you build what's been called a self-replicating talent machine. Third, don't let managers make hiring decisions for their own teams. This is a radical one. At Google, managers can't unilaterally hire someone. Why? Because managers are human. As a search drags on, their standards can drop. They might be biased toward a friend, or feel pressure to fill a role quickly. Instead, hiring decisions are made by a committee of peers and a group of objective, senior leaders. This ensures that every hire meets the same high bar for quality, regardless of which team they're joining. The result of this rigorous, data-driven process is that when someone is hired at Google, they are trusted from day one. There's no period of having to prove yourself. The organization has such faith in the quality of the hiring process that new employees are immediately treated as full, valued members of the team. Now, once you have these incredible people, how do you manage them? This is where Google's philosophy gets even more counterintuitive. The best way to manage great people is to take power away from managers. At Google, there's a deep skepticism about traditional management. Many engineers see managers as a layer of bureaucracy that gets in the way of real work. The traditional manager controls your pay, your promotions, your workload. They hold immense power. And power, as the old saying goes, corrupts. To combat this, Google deliberately strips managers of their traditional tools of power. As we've seen, they can't unilaterally hire. They also can't unilaterally fire someone, decide on promotions, or determine someone's pay increase. All of these decisions are made by committees of peers or independent groups. So, what's a manager left to do? The only thing that's left: serve the team. Their job is not to command and control, but to clear roadblocks and inspire. This is reinforced by eliminating the visible symbols of hierarchy. There are no executive dining rooms or special parking spots. The most senior executives get the same benefits as the newest hires. The goal is to create an environment where decisions are made based on data, not on who has the most senior title. One of the most powerful tools for this is an annual employee survey called GoogleGist, which means the spirit of Google. Nearly 90% of employees participate every year. It asks about 100 questions on everything from manager quality to career development and innovation. The results aren't just filed away in an HR cabinet. They are shared with the entire company. Every manager with more than a few reports gets a detailed summary of what their team thinks of them. And the reports of all vice presidents are published for everyone to see. This creates a powerful virtuous cycle. Employees give honest feedback, the company takes action on that feedback, which encourages even more participation the next year. It's a mechanism that gives everyone a voice and holds leaders accountable. This data-driven approach also extends to understanding performance. Like most companies, Google struggled with performance reviews. Nobody likes them. They take a ton of time, and they often feel unfair. In traditional systems, you have a single conversation at the end of the year where your manager tells you how you did and what your raise is going to be. Laszlo Bock argues this is a huge mistake because it combines two things that should be completely separate: performance evaluation and personal development. The moment you start talking about money, the employee stops listening to feedback. Their brain switches from learning mode to defense mode. Google's solution is simple but brilliant: have the two conversations at different times. The conversation about development, how you can grow and improve, should be a constant, ongoing dialogue between a manager and their team member. The conversation about evaluation and rewards should happen separately, as a way to fairly distribute finite resources like bonuses and promotions. To ensure fairness in evaluation, Google uses a process called calibration. Groups of managers meet to review all of their employees' performance ratings together. They discuss individuals and debate the ratings until they reach a consensus. This process removes the bias of a single manager and ensures that everyone is held to the same standard of performance across the company. But where Google really innovates is in how it thinks about the distribution of performance. Most companies operate on the assumption that performance follows a normal distribution, the classic bell curve, with a few poor performers, a few superstars, and the vast majority of people clustered in the middle as average. But research shows this is wrong. In most jobs, human performance doesn't follow a bell curve. It follows a power law distribution. Think of it this way: in a group of 10 people, one person isn't just 10% better than average, they might be 10 times better. A tiny number of elite performers produce a massive amount of the output. As Bill Gates famously said, a great software writer is worth 10,000 times the price of an average one. This leads to one of the book's most provocative rules: pay unfairly. If you pay everyone about the same, or within a narrow band, you are overpaying your worst performers and dramatically underpaying your best ones. And what do your best people do when they're underpaid? They leave. Paying unfairly means having wide variations in pay that reflect the huge variations in contribution. It means someone at a junior level could make far more than an average performer at a senior level. It's not about paying people equally, it's about paying them in proportion to their impact. But here's the crucial caveat: while you should reward exceptional performance with exceptional pay, you should never celebrate compensation. In its early days, Google created a program called Founders Awards, which gave multi-million-dollar stock awards to teams that had extraordinary accomplishments. It sounded great in theory, but it backfired. It made people less happy. Why? Because it focused everyone's attention on the money. People who didn't win felt left out. People who won smaller amounts than they expected were disappointed. And even some of the biggest winners, after receiving a life-changing sum, wanted to move to new projects, hoping to win again. The program celebrated money, which led to jealousy and resentment. The lesson was to reward privately with cash, but celebrate publicly with experiences. People are far more motivated and remember experiences, like a team trip or a special dinner, much longer than they remember a cash bonus. The joy of money is fleeting, but memories last forever. This brings us to the final layer of Google's people philosophy, the power of small, subtle interventions. In their book Nudge, the scholars Richard Thaler and Cass Sunstein showed how small changes in our environment can have a huge impact on our choices. Google has become a living laboratory for applying these ideas to the workplace. They call it Optimize Your Life. For instance, in their micro kitchens, they didn't ban unhealthy snacks. They simply made them less visible. They put the candy in opaque containers and moved the healthy options, like fruit and nuts, to eye level in clear glass jars. The result? In their New York office, this simple change led Googlers to consume 3.1 million fewer calories over 7 weeks, the equivalent of avoiding nearly 900 pounds of weight gain. In the cafes, they offered both large and small plates. After putting up small signs explaining that people who use smaller plates eat less but feel just as satisfied, a third of Googlers switched to the smaller plates, reducing food consumption and waste. These nudges aren't about forcing people to do things, they're about making it easier to make good choices. Another powerful example is a simple email sent to managers the day before a new employee starts. It's a checklist of 5 simple actions, like having a role and responsibilities discussion and assigning a peer buddy. It seems almost ridiculously basic. But Nooglers? That's what new Googlers are called? Whose managers received this email became fully productive 25% faster than their peers. That's a full month of learning time saved, all from a single, well-timed email. These are not mandates, they are gentle nudges that make the right behaviors the easiest behaviors. Of course, it's not all rainbows and unicorns. Laszlo Bock is honest about the mistakes Google has made along the way. The commitment to transparency means that sometimes there are massive, company-wide email debates about seemingly trivial things, like the name of a pie. One day, a cafe offered a free Tibet goji chocolate creme pie. It sparked a firestorm, with over 1,000 emails from Googlers who were offended by the political statement and others who defended it as free speech. The debate resolved nothing, but it was a sign that the culture of transparency and voice was alive, even when it was messy and uncomfortable. Building a high-freedom workplace is a constant balancing act. It requires a willingness to experiment, to listen, to admit when you're wrong, and to always hold true to the core belief that people are fundamentally good. Ultimately, Work Rules is a book about a choice. You can build an organization based on control, rules, and hierarchy. Or you can build one based on freedom, trust, and purpose. The path of freedom is harder. It requires more courage. It will be messier. But Laszlo Bock makes a powerful case that it is the only path that will attract and keep the most talented people on the planet, and the only one that will make work a source of meaning and joy, not just a means to an end. Commentary. When you finish a book like Work Rules, it's easy to feel a mix of inspiration and a little bit of skepticism. You might think, well, that's great for Google. They have unlimited resources. They can afford to do all this, but I think that's missing the point entirely. The most powerful lesson in this book is that building an incredible workplace has almost nothing to do with money. In fact, most of the programs that have the biggest impact at Google are free. A program that lets employees give each other small cash bonuses? It relies on trust, not a budget. A checklist emailed to managers to help new hires get up to speed? It costs nothing but a little bit of thought. Creating a culture where people can question the CEO? That requires courage, not capital. The real perks at Google aren't the free lunches or the massage chairs. The real perk is being trusted. It's the freedom to shape your work, to have a voice, to be treated like an owner. And that, as Laszlo Bock says, is free. The book is a powerful reminder that the way we work today is not the way we have to work. For over a century, our model of management has been based on ideas from the industrial age, a world of control, predictability, and efficiency, where people were seen as parts in a machine. But we don't live in that world anymore. We live in a world that demands creativity, adaptability, and passion. And you can't command someone to be passionate. You can't order them to be creative. You can only create the conditions where those qualities can emerge. That's what this book is truly about. It's a guide to creating those conditions. And the principles are universal. It doesn't matter if you're running a tech startup, a local coffee shop, a nonprofit, or just a small team project at school. You can start tomorrow by making a few simple changes. First, give your work meaning. Whatever you do, connect it to the people it helps. Make that connection visible. Second, trust your people by default. Share more information than you're comfortable with. Give them a little more freedom than you think they can handle. And third, focus on the two tails. Find your absolute best people and put them under a microscope. Figure out what makes them successful, and then turn them into teachers. And find your people who are struggling the most, and approach them with compassion and a genuine desire to help them improve or find a role where they can shine. The journey described in Work Rules is not an easy one. It's messy, it's filled with debate, and it requires a constant willingness to question your own assumptions. But it offers a hopeful, inspiring vision for the future of work, a future where our workplaces are not just engines of productivity, but sources of community, creativity, and human flourishing. That was a summary of Work Rules by Laszlo Bock. We've touched on the core ideas today, but I'll be honest with you, a summary is just a map. The real journey happens when you explore the territory for yourself. The true magic of a book like this is in the details, the specific studies, the personal stories, the moments of insight that hit you when you least expect it. This summary is here to help you decide if this book is worth your time and attention. If any of the ideas we've discussed today have sparked something in you, if they've made you rethink what's possible in a workplace, then I encourage you to pick up a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning new management techniques, it's an experience that can genuinely change how you think about your career and your role in shaping the world around you. You can find a link to the book in the description below. Also, if you found this summary valuable and it gave you something to think about, please take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. That way, you won't miss our next journey into another life-changing book. Let's keep learning and growing together.